my last video, I demonstrated how to do a mattress stitch seam on an actual garment. I did the shoulder seam of the garment, which included the armhole, attaching the sleeve to the armhole of the sweater. In this video, I want to go over that again. I'm using contrasting swatches so that you can really see how that seam is playing out, as well as a contrasting color of yarn. Usually you would choose something that coordinates much better. These stitches do disappear with mattress stitch, but you generally would want to choose something that's going to coordinate a little bit better. You are going to need a tapestry needle. You can either use straight or bent, a pair of scissors, and optional but very helpful are some of these little clips. So the first thing that we're going to do is, of course, thread the needle. I'm going to use the bent tip needle here, and then we're going to start joining these two pieces together. Now, even though they're contrasting colors and slightly different yarns, they're both 20 rows each, so they should match up pretty well. It is possible to work on the very edge stitch. However, I like to work 2 stitches in, and that gives a much cleaner, especially if you have decreases or increases at play. What you're going to do is you're going to pick up 2 of those ladders between the stitches. That's what you're picking up every time, and you're just going to go back and forth and back and forth. You want to make sure that you're staying in that same column. And what you're going to create is something like this. You can pull it tight earlier if you want to. You don't have to. I usually will do 2 to 3 stitches and then I'll pull it tight. And look at how nicely that disappears, how nicely those stitches hold together. You will see that yarn in the seam, which is why you would want to choose a coordinating color, but it creates a very nice, very invisible seam. Again, you're picking up these ladders between the stitches, 2 at a time. You're staying in that column, go 2 or 3 stitches, pull tight. And there is our completed seam. It's a strong seam. It will hold 2 pieces of knitting together. It still has a little bit of stretch to it because it's a spiral. If you made a mistake and want to redo something, it's really easy to take it out. You just pull and then you can start over again. But even though it's easy to remove over the course of a whole sweater or after you've woven in the ends, it will hold together really nicely. I'm just going to redo this seam so that we have it for our later videos. Pulling tight, making sure I don't pull too tight. If I pull too tight, it's going to bunch up the knitting. Not sure if you can see that, but it starts to ruffle. You don't want that. You want it to be at your natural relaxed gauge, your row gauge, and there's our seam. Now I am satisfied with that, so I'm going to weave in these ends just so we can see how strong that really is. How you choose to weave these ends in is really up to you and how that garment is going to be worn or displayed. I like to do this little whip stitch. I feel like it gives me a little bit of extra strength, and 5 or 6 stitches is more than enough. Just trim that and I'll go back to the other side. So what I'm doing here is effectively doing another little bit of a seam, and this is going to keep those ends tucked in, but it's also going to give you just a little bit more strength to that seam without adding too much bulk. And now when I tug at it, that seam is not going anywhere because I've secured it on the back. So that is mattress stitch joining 2 sides. In my next video, I'm going to show you how to join a side to a top. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.